Hello and welcome to Proud Malcontent on what I am reliably informed is Sunday the 3rd of August. And a little change of plan today. We were intending to have a new feature today. Another thing that we're trying out, something that we're calling Conflate Corner. No, Confute Corner. I'm sorry, Confute Corner. And this is a little feature where we're intending to refute some of the myths that exist around the whole constitutional issue here in Scotland. I say we because this is all the idea of my friend Stephen Duncan, who's my go-to guy for anything to do with numbers, statistics, psephology, anything like that. I'm not great with numbers. I'm pretty good with words, but I'm not great with numbers at all. So I always defer to someone more knowledgeable in that area when I'm dealing with numbers. And Stephen Duncan is that man. I was hoping to start that today, but we've had a bit of a rethink on how we're going to do it. So it's now going to start next Sunday, or such as so it's the plan at the moment. I think I can say for pretty much certain that it will start next Sunday. That's Conflate Corner, and we'll be dealing with some of the myths surrounding the constitutional issue. There's a lot of them. I mean, the word myths is chosen advisedly because some of these things are just things that people believe. The others are things that are misrepresentations, lies, basically. People tell lies. Nothing new there. And so it's just a case of putting some of these things right. And the reason that's important is that if we think about the constitutional issue about independence, that is often presented as a journey. And you cannot possibly plan a journey unless you know precisely as possible, where you're starting from. You have to identify the starting point first. So if people are putting out stories which totally misrepresent a starting point, then obviously that is not good for Scotland's cause. People have to know exactly where we're starting from. And what I'm going to do today is relates to that, because there's a lot of talk this week. I suppose the big story in relation to the constitutional issue is the release of details about what's I'm going with. Apologies to Graham, I'm kind of obliged to call the McCormick resolution. This is a resolution which has either been submitted or it is to be submitted for the SNP conference in October. It's being portrayed as a rebel resolution because it's a rival to John Swinney, the leadership resolution, which under normal circumstances would be passed just as a formality. But it's being challenged this year. And one of the challenges is coming from so what I'm going to call the McCormick resolution, because as opposed different from the Newington resolution. The Newington resolution is identified with the Newington and Southside branch. It's their resolution, drafted mainly by Mike Wallace, who I was talking about on Wednesday. But the McCormick resolution is supported by, I believe, 43 branches. So we now have these two competing rival resolutions, if I can put it that way. I dealt with the rival resolution, the McCormick resolution, and the Swinney resolution in a blog earlier this week, and I discounted both for the very obvious reason that they're not actually plans for independence. They don't lead to independence. Neither one of them has independence as its end point. Both of them end at negotiations with Westminster. Now, that may lead to independence. It probably won't, not the way Westminster behaves, not with Westminster's attitude. So ending at negotiations with Westminster is very much not the same as independence. So where these resolutions both end at negotiations which in fact can only be for a Section 30 order, a Section 30 referendum, because that is the very most that the UK government could conceivably concede. So these negotiations can't be for anything else. Alapa talk about negotiations for independence. Well, why? Why? And on the one hand, they're saying that the people of Scotland have voted for independence in this de facto referendum that they say the 2026 election will be. They say the Scottish people have voted for independence. They say the Scottish people are sovereign. That should be the end of the matter. If it's sovereign, our word is the last word. We are the ultimate political authority. So it's contradictory. It's internally contradictory because they say that we are sovereign. They say that we have expressed our will, and then they say, but then we're going to have negotiations for independence with Westminster. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. No plan, no SNP resolution, no plan makes any sense unless it actually has independence as its end point. And as you'll be expecting to hear from me, there is only one plan. There's only one plan. Yeah, there's been quite a few people trying to get me to shut up about this lately. Somebody on Facebook the other day posted something about how I'm always going on about the one thing and how it gets to be a bit tedious. Well, tough. I am focused on the one thing. I'm focused on the constitutional issue because somebody has to be. There's too much focus on elections and electoral success and the rewards that go with that. Somebody has to focus on the constitutional issue and figure out all the problems associated with it without being distracted by thoughts of being elected and the salary and the status and the short money that goes with that. So I make no apology if I talk about and write about little else, because this is without doubt the most important matter facing Scotland at the moment. I'm talking about the constitutional issue. There is no more important matter facing the people of Scotland at this moment. As I was saying, there's only one plan which actually has independence as its endpoint, and that is the Scottish UDI plan. That is the plan which is, the thinking behind that plan is the same thinking as is behind the Newington resolution. So as far as the SNP is concerned, the Newington resolution is the one that they should be focusing on. The McCormick resolution, with all due respect to Graham McCormick, the McCormick resolution simply doesn't do the job because it doesn't have independence as its end point. Anything that stops with negotiations with the UK government simply will not do the job for us. So, moving on, we go to the Scottish UDI and the New England Resolution. The two are very closely related. And I have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy explaining the Scottish UDI plan. Now, I openly admit that the Scottish UDI plan is more complicated, or it looks more complicated than the more simplistic plans, such as those suggested by John Swinney and Graham McCormack et al. Those plans simply don't work, so I'm not going to trouble too much about them. But because the Scottish UDI plan goes at the whole issue in a different way, it reframes the whole issue. People claim to find it very somewhat difficult to understand. And it also means that a lot of people, mainly people who haven't even bothered to read anything about it, are posting lies, or shall we be generous and call them misrepresentations of the Scottish UDI plan. One of these misrepresentations, kind of a favourite one among the people who write about it or speak about it from a position of proud ignorance, is that it is undemocratic because it doesn't allow the people a say. There's no input from the people. And this just proves that they haven't actually looked at the Scottish UDI plan at all. They're commenting from proud ignorance, because the Scottish UDI plan actually allows for 3 votes. There are 3 democratic votes, popular votes, that are part of the Scottish UDI plan. Now, earlier this week, I wrote, it actually started off as a comment on a blog, a comment on a blog article responding to someone who had the wrong idea about Scottish UDI. And it ended up being an explanation of Scottish UDI. And I was quite pleased about this because it turned out to be possibly the best and most concise explanation that I've done to date. So I posted it on my blog, and knowing that there are a great many people out there who prefer to listen rather than read. Different people have different ways of absorbing information, and there are people who prefer to listen rather than read. What I propose to do today is read this blog and then perhaps explain some of the points in it. And while I read it, I'd like you to see if you can spot where the 3 votes come in, the 3 popular votes, the 3 occasions when the people actually get to have a vote on this plan or within this plan. And if you spot that, then post a comment, or if you have any questions about the Scottish UDI plan, let's focus on that today. If you have any questions about the Scottish UDI plan, then please post on the comments. You can also get in touch with me at proudmalcontent@peterabell.scot. But for today, obviously, I can't do this and read emails. So for the moment, immediately, if you use the comments, then I should be able to see them and respond to them live. Now we'll go to that the blog article called A Brief Explanation of the Scottish UDI Plan. I'll put it up on the screen and then I will read it. A brief explanation of the Scottish UDI plan. The Scottish UDI plan, which is the basis for the Newington resolution. Excuse me just a moment, I should take a drink before I start. My voice is not very strong. There we go. I'll start again. The Scottish UDI plan, which is the basis for the Newington resolution, provides the answer to the question of the UK Supreme Court ruling regarding the Scottish Parliament's power to legislate for a constitutional referendum. That, I should point out, was the point of the argument, the comment that was put to me on the blog. So that was me responding to the commenter. The idea that any and all legal challenges are to be avoided is part of the Sturgeon doctrine. Contrary to this nonsense, at some point, legal challenges must be faced and overcome. If we are not prepared to do that, we will never restore Scotland's independence. The important thing is to pick your fights cleverly. Where you can choose the ground and time of engagement, do so wisely. If you don't, your opponent will choose the ground and time that suits them. Sturgeon's referral of the draft referendum bill to the UK Supreme Court is a prime example of picking the wrong fight and choosing the wrong ground and the wrong moment. We should learn the lesson of that unpleasant experience. The Scottish UDI solution to the UK Supreme Court ruling problem is to take the fight onto the ground of human rights, and thus into the realm of international law and the international courts, the European Court of Human Rights and or the International Court of Justice. It puts us in the position of defending the right of self-determination, which is arguably the most fundamental human right, as recognised by the Charter of the United Nations and various other declarations and conventions. The idea is to assert legislative competence in matters relating to the Union, that is to say the Constitution, in defiance of the Scotland Act, Schedule 5, Paragraph 1b, which reserves to Westminster matters relating to the union of the kingdoms of Scotland and England, citing, as we do this, the immediate reason, the fact that this is the only way the people of Scotland can be provided access to the exercise of our right of self-determination. If this prompts a legal challenge by the UK government, we will then be in the position of defending a human right in an action which must ultimately go to the international courts. It is quite possible that the UK government will choose not to challenge the action of the Scottish Parliament, as it would be advised by its lawyers that it doesn't have strong grounds, and that the grounds that it did have would involve stating in open court things it would prefer not to say in public. The only grounds available to it being either to claim that the people of Scotland do not qualify for the right of self-determination, or that the Section 30 process provides the means by which the people of Scotland can exercise a right of self-determination, which is why the Section 30 process must be repudiated now. This paragraph probably needs a bit more explanation. The thinking behind this is that when we move it onto the ground of human rights, we are defending, and we should not challenge the British state. We should not take them to court. We should act and then let them try and stop us. If you look at past independence movements that have succeeded, you'll possibly recall the James Murphy comment from the National, which has been is now posted a lot on social media, and I did an article about it myself on my blog. it shows how so many previous independence movements succeeded because they acted and then defied a challenge to their action. And this is what is missing from the other SNP resolutions and other so-called plans for restoring independence. The independence bit must come first. Not negotiations with the United Kingdom, not negotiations with Westminster, because we cannot go into those negotiations as a subordinate part of the United Kingdom. That would put us in a very, very weak position in those negotiations. We must go into those negotiations as an independent country so that we are on an equal status. We have equal status with the rest of the UK. So that is why it's important that any plan, as outlined in an SNP resolution or anywhere else, must end up at independence. Then you go on to negotiations. If the plan puts negotiations before a declaration of independence, then it simply will not work. And the grounds on which we take or we answer the challenge, having taken it onto into the realm of human rights, the UK government can only respond to that in two ways. It can say that we don't have the right of self-determination, which is going to be rather difficult because it's problematic for them because they have already acknowledged a right of self-determination, and we have a strong case there under the United Nations Charter, which defines the right of self-determination as a human right and therefore a universal right and an inalienable right. So being inalienable, it can't be something that they switch on and off. It can't be there when it suits them, as when they signed the Edinburgh Agreement, and then not there when all of a sudden it doesn't suit them. That's the way the British state works. Britannia waives the rules, but it's not the way the world works, and it's certainly not the way international law works. So this is where we get the advantage of going on into the international courts in the realm of international law. It's worth saying at this point also that even the UK Supreme Court would have difficulty in striking down this action or declaring it unlawful, because they would be striking down the right of self-determination. And that would be problematic for them. So, the UK Supreme Court isn't the obstacle that people might think it is. The other grounds that UK might have for challenging the Scottish Parliament's asserting of its legislative competence in the area of the Constitution, or a challenge at any point in the plan. The other, apart from trying to deny that Scotland is a nation and that the Scottish people have a right of self-determination, they could claim that there is already an existing process, that they could say that our claim that this is the only way that we can get access to the exercise of our right of self-determination, that is to say, vote for it in a proper constitutional referendum. They could say that that is not true. They could say that there is an existing process within the UK whereby we can exercise our right of self-determination, and that is the Section 30 process, at which point the judges in the international courts will collapse laughing on the floor, because the Section 30 process is absolutely nothing like a proper constitutional referendum. It is consultative, it's non-determinative, it is non-self-executing. It allows for conditions to be set by what in the eyes of the UN is the administering power, the colonizer. It just disqualified on so many different grounds from being the full and proper exercise of our right of self-determination. So they wouldn't get very far with either one of those, and their lawyers would very likely advise them not to challenge it and to fight another day. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but at least it puts the British government, the British state, on the defensive. Now, wouldn't that be a pleasant change? Let's go back to a simple explanation of the Scottish UDI process. The Scottish UDI plan is to use the 2026 Scottish Parliament election to generate a strong mandate for the action outlined above. That is to say, the Scottish Parliament asserting its legislative competence in constitutional matters. The aim would be to create a super mandate. Don't get that confused with a supermajority. A supermajority is useless. There's nothing that you can do with 76 MSPs that you can't do with 67. The whole supermajority thing is overblown. Okay, it's a lot of fun. The idea of kicking unionists out of the Parliament is a lot of fun, but it's not the unionists in Parliament that are blocking independence. It's the Scottish government. It's the Scottish government's failure to act that's blocking independence. The unionists, so long as they're in a minority, they can do nothing. That as a super mandate is a majority of genuinely pro-independence MSPs elected on at least 50% of the popular vote in both ballots. Now, would you imagine that? That's 67 pro-independence MSPs, and we know they're genuinely pro-independence because they've signed up to the Manifesto for Independence. They've been elected on the Manifesto for Independence. There's 67 of them, a majority, a working majority, and they are backed by over 50% of the vote on both ballots. Now, that is a super mandate. Though it has to be said that anything short of this aim, but with a working majority of pro-independence MSPs, would still be a strong mandate. Which is to say that even supposing there was those 67 or more genuinely pro-independence MSPs, and they were elected on slightly less than 50% of the popular vote on both ballots or on one of the two ballots, that would still be a very strong mandate. I mean, 67 pro-independence MSPs, working majority, control of the government, and maybe 50% on the regional list vote, and 45%, let's say, on the constituency vote. That would still be a strong mandate. It would still be a powerful tool in the fight for independence, a powerful weapon. The means by which this mandate is generated would be a de facto referendum. And we hear a lot of talk about de facto referendums. Nobody explains exactly how it would work. And for this to work effectively, a binary element must be added to the election. This would be achieved by having all the pro-independence parties adopt an identical manifesto pledge, the Manifesto for Independence, committing them to specified action within a stated time frame. probably the first year of the new parliament. This is important. This is the only way that we can have a de facto referendum that actually works like a referendum. It would be like a separate part of the election. It would be separated from the election. There would be the election, and then there would be this binary element, which would be either a vote for one of the parties that has the manifesto for independence or not. That is binary. It's one thing or the other. So that binary element provides an actual referendum-like result. And nobody can argue that it's not all the vote for the same thing. So that's an important thing. And others don't explain how a referendum, a de facto referendum, will work. They simply don't. They talk about having a de facto referendum, and they leave it at that. Or they just talk about a referendum and leave it at that. They don't explain what constitutes a proper constitutional referendum. So it's important to describe how it's worked, and it's important to have this confidence in the result, the certainty, this disambiguation of the result. We'll have to make sure it's clear. We'll have to make sure that people trust it, that they have confidence in it. And the way to do that is by introducing this binary element. And I'll give you a wee hint here. That is related to the what I was talking about, the three votes. So we'll think about that, and I'll finish up the blog article. Recognising that Scotland's political caste is notoriously disinclined to bold and imaginative action, aren't they just? The Scottish UDI plan proposes incentivising all the nominally pro-independence parties by means of a public petition urging adoption of the Manifesto for Independence. The Newington resolution represents action by SNP members attempting to have their party embrace the new thinking on the constitutional issue, which led to the development of the Scottish UDI plan. The hope is that other parties will follow suit. The petition, I have to say, is very important. It's important because this is what puts pressure on the political parties. There is an election looming. An election is the only time that we have leverage over the political parties. Once the election's over, once they're all there, once bums are on seats in Holyrood, that's it. We cease to have any leverage at all. We barely have influence. We can't even access our MSPs, as a lot of people have found, particularly with the SNP. You will contact your MSP about something relating to the constitutional issue, maybe a comment on the Swinney resolution, and you simply get ignored. So we have to act before the election, at the time when we have some leverage. And what we need is a show of strength by the independence movement, because all these nominally pro-independence parties are depending on the backing of the bulk of the independence movement. The SNP certainly are, and the other nominally pro-independence parties are looking to take some of the pro-independence vote that the SNP lays claim to, continues to lay claim to from the back in the day when it was the Party of Independence, and it really was the Party of Independence. The Newington resolution is an attempt to take the SNP back to being the Party of Independence. The Swinney resolution and the McCormick resolution only make the Scottish Government, the SNP, the party of negotiation with Westminster, and that's just not good enough. And we're just getting to the end here. It's worth noting that the Scottish UDI plan has a further advantage of taking the constitutional issue out of the realm of partisan electoral politics. Also, the greater popular support for the Scottish Parliament having more powers relative to independence means that the de facto referendum should be easier to win and win by a greater margin. A super mandate is possible. And that too, perhaps we could speak about a little more. Taking the constitutional issue out of the realm of partisan electoral politics. That could also be stated as taking the partisan politics out of the constitutional issue. What the Scottish UDI plan does is to separate them. There's the election, which is about all sort of policy matters, the whole range, just like a normal election. And because we've made it binary, there's this separate thing, which is about the Constitution. The parties can't compete in the election on the basis of their approach to the constitutional issue, because they have all adopted the same manifesto commitment. There is no difference, so therefore there's nothing for them to compete on. And it keeps it separate. It keeps the two things separate. That alone is a huge benefit. A huge benefit, because what is divisive is this. The adversarial nature of electoral politics, and this is why this whole thing about getting the pro-independence parties to unite, it simply won't work, because it certainly wouldn't survive an election. They're not going to unite, as in amalgamate, because none of them, none of the established parties anyway, is going to subsume its identity in some umbrella organisation, allowing that umbrella organisation and the other members of under that umbrella to speak for it. The SNP is not going to sit there and allow some umbrella organisation to speak for it. It's simply not going to happen. And to be honest, neither is Alba. They're just not going to do it. So the whole thing about uniting the parties is nonsense. What you can do is create unity of purpose. The purpose being what is stated in the Manifesto for Independence. You can't bring all the parties together, but you can have all the parties holding up the same banner. That is the Scottish UDI plan. And taking it out of the realm of electoral politics, party politics, is going to be would be a great benefit. And there's also this thing about that a de facto referendum on the powers of the Scottish Parliament being easier to win, and to win by a greater majority. That is also a very important point. I don't know how much up to date it is, and I don't actually have the data to support this, but it's kind of just generally known and accepted that the issue of the powers of the Scottish Parliament is more popular than independence itself. Support for independence is below 50%. there are some people who claim that it's been consistently above in the 50% for 3 or 4 years. And I was talking earlier about the Confute Corner feature, which we're planning for next Sunday. And that will be one of the myths that I will be confuting with help from Steve Duncan. Things like the Scottish Social Attitudes Study over time have consistently shown that when people are asked about specific powers, they generally say that those powers should be with the Scottish Parliament. It was a strange thing during the, I should say, it's a majority for everything except defence and foreign affairs. And having watched the way the matters of defence and foreign affairs have been handled of late, and for some time now, I suspect that idea of leaving those in the hands of the British government is rather less popular now than it once was. But most people are in favour of additional powers, of various powers going to the Scottish Parliament. I would prefer to put that as not being withheld from the Scottish Parliament, because it is the Scottish Parliament and all powers rightfully belong with the Parliament that we elect, not the one where we have no influence whatsoever. So it was a strange thing during the 2014 referendum. I remember writing at one point that when people were asked about independence, there was a large, but still a minority, but still a minority in favour of independence. But when they were asked about the individual powers, like control of land policy, sorry, I'm not thinking straight here. The individual powers, when asked about them, like full control over tax, welfare and such like, when asked about them, people said, should be holidayed, should be the Scottish Parliament. And when you went through them all, the way it turned out was that if asked about the individual powers, people were actually in favour of independence, because when you added them all together, it was independence, because when you added all them together, there's no way that defence and foreign affairs was going to be left out of it. So they were actually in support of independence when it was expressed in terms of the powers of the Scottish Parliament. So having a de facto referendum, especially one that is genuinely binary, having that de facto referendum on the matter of the powers of the Scottish Parliament is likely to attract more support. It's going to be an easier sell to the electorate than just independence, especially when that is not defined. It is not a defined term. The legislative competence on constitutional affairs, that is defined. That you know exactly what that means. You don't know exactly what independence means, because for years we've had all different parties and different organizations, different groups, different individuals, all presenting different visions of what independence means, with the result that nobody really knows what it means or what it implies. But you can make a very clear statement regarding the powers of the Scottish Parliament. So more people are likely to vote for it, and it will be easier to get a large majority, which is important, very important. We have to make this convincing. That's something else that I've been writing about recently, that when we vote for independence, when we vote in a proper constitutional referendum, that vote has to be conclusive. If you notice what happens with both the Swinney resolution and the McCormick resolution, we vote, and then what have we voted for? we voted for negotiations with the British government, negotiations about what. It's not conclusive. It's not a conclusive vote for independence, although that's the way it's presented during the election, when it's being used as an electioneering device. It said, well, they tell you this is a vote for independence. They don't tell you this is a vote for negotiations with the British government. It's a vote for independence, they'll say. But then it isn't a vote for independence. It's not a conclusive vote. It can't be conclusive, not least because it's not binary the way they propose to do it. It's not binary. It's not clear enough, and independence isn't well enough defined. So give people something that is well enough defined and something that they find it easy to vote for. If you want somebody to do something, you make it easy for them. So we want people to vote for something that will progress Scotland's cause, so we make it easy for them. And the way to make it easy is to make it about the powers of the Scottish Parliament. And right, where was I going next? I'm not at all sure. There must be something else. I was hoping for some comments or questions here. I don't want to get into going on and on about these other resolutions. I just have to say the Newington resolution is the one that is really radical. It is the one that is really bold. It is the one that is saying that it's that a vote for the pro-independence parties will actually be a vote for power to get independence. We vote for a plan that actually does lead to independence, because before we can have independence, we have to vote for it. And that vote has to be clear, and it has to be conclusive. It has to be decisive. And we can only do that in a proper constitutional referendum. That's a referendum which matches certain criteria. It must be binary for a start. Multi-option referendums don't really work. They end up being binary anyway, because the only way you can run a multi-option referendum is by having various elimination rounds. You might have several elimination rounds, which is not going to be popular with the public, who've been conditioned to look at voting as a chore. Rather than a right and a privilege. So that it all comes down to being binary. The options must be defined. They must be clearly defined. And those options must not change in the course of the campaign. In the course of the referendum campaign. If you remember, during the 2014 campaign, the options changed all the time, both options. No started off being a vote for the status quo, and it ended up being a vote for the vow, which promised major changes, which never materialized, of course, but that is an example of the way it changed. A yes vote for, well, take your pick. Any one of 100, 200 different visions of independence. It's very confusing and very vague. And this is where the Scottish UDI plan has the advantage, because it uses the first step of having the Scottish Parliament take the powers to authorise and legislate for a proper constitutional referendum, which a Section 30 referendum cannot be, as I stated earlier. The Scottish Parliament has to take those powers. That is the only way we can get this proper constitutional referendum. The suggested criteria for which were published as an annex to the Stirling Declaration. It describes some possible criteria for what a constitutional referendum can be. But the only way that can happen, however it's defined, whatever criteria are used, the only way it can happen is if it's held under the auspices of the Scottish Parliament and Scottish democratic institutions. That's to say, a Scottish electoral commission, etc. All the organisations and agencies involved in the referendum would have to be Scottish. They would have to be part of the Scottish democratic infrastructure, which the British state is currently seeking to dismantle. So taking the power to have that proper constitutional referendum has to be the first step. And one of the important things about this is that it will be conclusive, because it will be a vote for an actual proposal. Because what happens through the Scottish UDI plan is that the Scottish Parliament passes this resolution, which takes the powers to have a constitution, and then the Scottish government tables a bill of dissolution, as it was called in Norway. A bill of dissolution, basically an independence bill, and that will include an actual proposal for the independence, an actual proposal for what will ensue from a yes vote. People will be asked, do you approve this or not? And the bill will include things like the legislation for the arrangements for the referendum, how it will be organised, what the oversight will be. Hopefully the UN will be involved in that oversight. And it will also include a provisional, an interim constitution, just the basic constitution that's needed to establish the Scottish state as an entity, a legal personality, and various things like that. So people will know what they're voting for. And therefore, you're able to get this clear and conclusive vote. And that's important. Gordon Henderson, my old pal Gordon Henderson, I can't even say his name, says our elected representatives fear a Catalonia situation. I don't, because the situation in Catalonia is completely different. In Catalonia, in Spain, the constitution actually makes independence for Catalonia illegal. It outlaws it. It's a constitution that makes Spain this unitary state indissoluble and indivisible, I think is the term that they use. So that is a different situation. There is nothing comparable to that in the UK yet. But let us remember that the UK government has the power to alter the constitution pretty much in any way it chooses at any time. There really is nothing in principle to stop the British government rewriting. It's not written, but that makes it all the easier. They could make the UK constitution such that campaigning for independence is actually illegal. Oh, they would never do that. No, they would never make Palestine Action, an anti-genocide campaign. They would never make that a terrorist organization until they did. So don't rule out anything there. So at the moment that the Catalonia situation doesn't exist, there's also the fact it would be very difficult for the UK government to organise that kind of reaction, the kind of violent, horrifying reaction of the Spanish government to the poll in Catalonia, when they were standing out, Spanish police, paramilitaries, armed with clubs, standing outside polling stations, beating people to deter them from voting. It'd be very difficult for the British government to organise that. I mean, who would do the actual beating? I cannot see Police Scotland doing that. It's just not their way. And the public reaction to it would be, we would end up with a massive public outcry. I suspect the police themselves would say, no, don't go for that. Don't tell us to do that because we're going to have to tell you off. So that's unlikely to happen. What is more likely is a challenge in the courts. And even that, as I have said, is not as likely as some people think it might be. For the reasons that I already explained, the reasons that the British government, because we've taken this into the realm of human rights, the British government doesn't have a leg to stand on, or it has very wobbly legs. It doesn't want to have its lawyers stand up in court saying, "Oh, Scotland isn't really a country. Scotland doesn't have a right of self-determination that every other country in the world has, every other people has, but Scotland is somehow the exception." Equally, they don't want to be trying to persuade judges that a Section 30 referendum is anything like a proper constitutional referendum. And it would be very easy for Scotland's lawyers in that case to knock down those arguments. So on the one hand, a legal challenge will be their only resort. On the other hand, that legal challenge is made very difficult because we've taken the whole issue into the realm of human rights by following the Scottish UDI plan. And that's it. Our time's just about up for today, and thank goodness for that, because my voice is on the way out. I used to have quite a strong voice. I used to be able to talk for hours, but I certainly can't do that anymore. Remember that by all means, send me your questions and your comments to Proud Malcontent at peterabell.scot, or join me live when I'm live streaming like this, and use the comments. These live streamed shows will be available afterwards as podcasts on both my WordPress and my Substack blogs and on my YouTube channel. These things are not difficult to find. A search for a Proud Malcontent will find these things, and I welcome all questions and comments. I want to know if there are things that people do not understand about the Scottish UDI plan, things that they've been told which are not right, then I want to know about these things, and I want to put these things right. I want to put people right on what the Scottish UDI plan actually is and what effect it has. So, as I say, that's time just about up for today. I will be back with you on Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock until 2 o'clock, if my voice holds out until 2 o'clock. And I'll leave you till then. We'll see what happens on Wednesday. Thanks very much for joining me, and see you on Wednesday. Bye.